Well, a very warm welcome everyone to our session this afternoon, this evening. We'll make a start because we'll go by the clock up there, and we do know that please don't be confused as you're going and people are coming. We thought quite carefully about the best timing, and obviously with parents being very busy, we tried to put two in one night to save having to come up to AIS on two occasions. Kill two birds with one stone. So you're going to go in lots of information if you're here for both nights. I do need to pass on Mr. Cassin's apologies. He really wanted to be here to welcome you tonight. He's absolutely fine, though he is at the hospital because we had a visitor on campus this afternoon who took a terrible fall. So he has called me about 10 minutes ago and asked me to share with you his apologies. The reason he wanted to be here tonight is that part of tonight's mathematics IGCSE session is that we are working very much in our partnership with parents to ensure that they are all up to speed with the many curriculums that we offer here at the school, and to also explore our teaching and learning. So our teaching and learning committee has been working with both the elementary school and the secondary school, for some of you that may have children across both sub-schools, to provide a variety of information in the evenings. And he's been very proud of ensuring he's been here for the opening of all of them, and this is the first one that he has missed, so he'd like me to make sure I pass on his apologies. My name, just in case some of you don't know my face or who I am, is Fiona Johnston, and I have the privilege of being the head of this wonderful school, and I'm very excited tonight to be able to pass over to an exceptional head of mathematics. I've been in education for 23 years, and I have to say that Kat Huxtable is the best mathematics head of department, and I'm not saying this just to be nice, Kat, but she's an exceptional head of department and brings with her a huge wealth of knowledge and experience in mathematics, both at international schools, and of course when you hear her accent you'll hear she's also British, and she provided an information session last year for our parents, mostly our year 8s and our year 9s, so if any of you were here last year you may hear some familiar comments and some familiar ideas tonight, but for many of you we do appreciate it's your first time perhaps to find out about the IGCSE. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kat. I know that she's factored in plenty of time for questions at the end, so please don't hesitate to be brave and put up your hand if you've got some questions towards the end. Alternatively, Kat will certainly be around for the last 15 minutes while our next round of parents are arriving. You can certainly catch her one-on-one if you've got some individual questions specific perhaps to your individual son or daughter. So without any further ado, I will hand over to our head of mathematics, Catherine Huxtable.
Fiona's a bit taller than I am, as you may have guessed, so I hope everyone can hear me. I don't like using these things. Look, I've got quite a loud voice and I tend to move around a bit, so I'll try and make sure that you can all hear me, and I'll try and catch any questions as we go. Now you can see a quick outline of the evening. One of my main roles is to introduce you to the structure of the GCSE, because it is likely to be different to something that you've come across before. So we'll start off with that so that you understand what we're dealing with. We'll run through how it transitions from the Australian National Curriculum, which obviously we have from year 6 to 8. In there we will also discuss grade boundaries, how the grade boundaries are going to change. I think that's an important feature for you to get to grips with and to understand. So please do ask any questions as we're going through if there's anything I'm not touching on at that point. I will leave room at the end as well, but please do feel that you can ask as we go. We'll then discuss the placement of students. How do we recommend to you which course is going to be better for your son or daughter, and how you can support your children through this process, because there is a little bit of stress associated with it. We're trying to do our level best to bring that down, and that part of the process is this information unit. So thank you very much for coming. It helps us enormously if you understand just even how the course is structured, what we're doing with your children, how we're grading them. Those kind of basics will help you in communicating with us to say, look, I don't understand why this has happened. We've got a common shared background. And then obviously questions at the end. Okay, so please come on in, be welcome. Find any You can sit anywhere you like, although the seat at the front is obviously a favourite underneath here. Okay, Cambridge IGCSE 0607 is the code. It's a little bit, you might think, well, why do I need to know that? It's a bit boring information. But it has more than one syllabus. And the syllabi are very different. So it is important that we understand which one we're following. So 0607 we're following. We've got reference to this on our curriculum page on Connect. So don't feel like you have to memorize it. But just realizing that there is a different syllabus, this is the one we're following. There are 2 levels available, core and extension. All levels are assessed externally at the end of the 2 years. This is what the IGCSE is. However, we obviously assess your children as they're going through the programme. So anything that happens in Year 9, anything that happens in Year 10, is, early Year 10, is internal assessment. The IGCSE itself is assessed at the end of 2 years. So coming up now, this November, there will be 3 papers that the students will be sitting. And that comprises the entire IGCSE exam in mathematics. So any reports that you get from us in Year 9 will be totally based on our assessment, in-house assessment, and our formative judgment about how your children are doing. The papers are broken down here, core and extended. Both have 3 papers. The difference in the papers is largely in the duration. And obviously the duration ties into the content. So you'll see that for core, there's papers 1, 3, and 5, culminating in 3.5 hours. So you're cumulative. It's a 3.5 hour exam. Extended is a 4.5 hour exam. So if we just look at it from that basis, even doing easy maths, let's just do 3 hours versus 4 hours, there's a 25% difference in the time. So you can see straight away that that implies there's going to be quite a bit of difference in the content of both papers. And by that I mean the quantity. So there is some overlap. Okay? All of the core material will be examined in the extended exam, plus the extension material. So there is a significant amount of overlap there. Core papers are graded from C to G, C being the highest grade. It doesn't go higher than that. Now that's a bit alien to us with an Australian curriculum background because it goes all the way up to A. Everyone can go all the way up to an A. The core paper is not, doesn't go up that high. The highest grade you can get is the C, and that is an excellent grade to get on the core paper. The history of this exam is that it's based in British academia. And in Britain, C is considered a matriculation grade. So I'm just giving you this as background because, of course, unless your children go to university in Britain, this bit won't really matter to you much. But in the UK, to get into university, you have to have a grade C in mathematics. If you don't get it, you have to resit. Okay? They're quite strict on it. So that grade C, from a British perspective, is considered the jewel in the crown. As long as you get a C, you're off to university. Now, obviously, if you want to study maths at university, one would hope you were going to get higher than a C. But a C grade is the matriculation grade, it's the pass grade. So that's why we will sometimes say to you, we're good. They're tripping along great at the moment, things are going really well. They're on a C, maybe in Year 9, they got a C for that assessment. And sometimes the parents are like, that's no good. A C grade, that's terrible. They've always been getting A's. So part of what we're trying to share with you tonight is that that may be okay at that point in time, and it is considered a good grade. Extended goes A star down to E. Okay, so if you are a higher ability student and you're thinking of going on to do studies in university that are going to have a higher component of maths, then obviously you're thinking in terms of your senior study, you want to do a higher level of maths as well. So the A star, A, B grades are going to be the important ones for those students. The course itself does align, perhaps surprisingly, quite well with the Australian national curriculum. We are quite fortunate with mathematics, it being the universal language. The main differences that you find between Britain, Australia, this international program, is not that the topic is any different, it's just which units they decide to study and which units they decide to leave out. That's the main difference that we find. So that means it aligns well with the Australian curriculum. The You'll see I've put down the bottom, year 9 and 10 for core, and 9, 10, and 10A for extended. So the Australian curriculum does have a level 9, a level 10, and a 10A. The 10A is considered their extension material. Okay? That's the very hardest stuff back in Australia. And the students studying that are the ones that we'll expect in HSC or whichever part, Victoria, whichever part that you're living in and going on to. That 10A bit is the bit that the extension students should be studying if they want to go on to a higher level of maths. Okay? A lot of students just study 10. They don't study 10A back in Australia. A lot of students. 10A is not aimed at the general population. Okay? So when we look at extended then, we see that 10A is included in the extended program. So we actually have a lot of students studying that extra component, that 10A stuff. And it tends to be the A*A material. It's quite challenging. Quite a bit of it actually occurs in the first year of year 11. First kind of 6 months of year 11. So the students will get to see it again. This is why it prepares them, and that's HSC or IB. It prepares them quite well for year 11, but it does mean, because they're studying it in year 10, that comes with added challenges. They may not always be mature enough to cope with it and the level of study it needs. So there's a few things around that we have to be honest about and say, when we're supporting students, these are things we have to look out for. And that's a general overview of the 2 papers. Now, papers 1 is a non-calculated paper, so it's a shorter duration. Similarly, paper 2. So 1 and 2 are this non-calculated papers. So they're the equivalent in terms of core and extended. The paper 3 and 4 is a calculated paper, and it requires a graphic calculator. So in year 6, 7, and 8, we use a scientific calculator. In year 9 and 10, we use a graphic calculator. And we recommend the Texas 84. Okay? Now, if the students don't have that calculator, they are at a distinct disadvantage on this course. The course definitely, certainly in the papers 3 and 4, writes questions to assess how well the students can use this tool. And it's largely based around the graphing capabilities of the calculator. It's a great learning tool, as we're going through anyway. And it also prepares them largely for IB, I've got to be honest. HSC does not use this graphic calculator at the moment. There is a bit of a rumour going on that may change, but it won't change for your sons and daughters. I wouldn't have thought it would change in the next couple of years. It takes time for the HSC to roll through and change things. So at the moment, there are no graphic calculators in HSC, but there are at every level in IB. So all 3 levels studied will use the graphic. So the students will go on already knowing how to use it. Any questions about the structure? You all okay with that? Yeah.
So the 9 and the 10 in both core and extended, is it that they're doing 10A in year 10?
Largely.
Okay, so
Yeah. Not exclusively, it's a little bit. There are little bits in year 9 that would be considered to be 10A. But largely it's now. Yeah, it is. It's sort of February, March, April. We need to get a certain level of mathematical maturity before we can introduce some of those subjects.
and is there an opportunity if you've got to keep your heads into extended but it just doesn't work out and drop back to do core?
Yeah, we'll discuss that when we come to discussing support. Yes, definitely. We have to keep looking at the students and how they're coping. Yeah.
Is it fair then to say that if your child wanted to do extended maths in year 11 and 12, they really need to do extended in 9 and 10?
Yes. Would be a fair point. And usually that's what we find anyway.
My son's in 9. Is he already on this program? Or
So what we
which
do.
one is he on?
Okay, well I'll just flick through because I will come to that. When we discuss how the students are placed, then we'll come to that. So I'll just explain the assessment first, if that's okay, then I'll come back to you.
Okay, just one question. You mentioned that some of the topics aren't necessarily the same. So
Do you mean between core and extension?
between IGCSE and I don't know if it's exactly the same for Australia, because if my son does the IB, okay, so covered. But what about the HSC? Are all the topics
preparation that he needs for HSC is in there. Yeah. It's got extra. So it's good preparation for both courses, definitely. Okay, so as I referred to earlier, the IGCSE itself is examined by the 3 exams at the end of the course. Right at the end of the course, those 3 exams, that's it. Okay? But obviously for us, we need to see how students are doing, and you need to see how your sons and daughters are doing. So we're obviously reporting to you on a regular basis all the way through Year 9 and through this first section of Year 10. Okay? So in Year 9, the semester 1, we have 3 assessments. Semester 2, we have 3 assessments. The assessments tend to be on units, so it may be 1, 2, 3 units, depending on the length of the unit. We've obviously got a half-yearly exam built in there for Year 9, and that comes in early term 3. So it'll be on everything that they've studied to date, and it gives them an idea of how they're travelling. When we get into Year 10, the big one is, I've put week 3 there, that's to be confirmed, but it should be around about week 3 in February. Okay, so week 3 is our school calendar. So just for you to know, it's the 3rd week back, so we'll be in February by that time. And they're going to get an exam that will cover all of the Year 9 content. So this gives us a very good indicator of where they're positioned. So in referring to, how we're monitoring and are they on the right course, these are definite points that we will be looking to see how the students are coping. Are they still on track? Is this still the right course for them to be on? And we'll be communicating with you. So it shouldn't come out of the blue to you that we suddenly say, look, it's all gone a bit wrong. And this has come out of the group, because we can see as they're going along, as they're coping in class, and obviously we've had parent-teacher conferences as well, so there should be plenty of opportunity for us to monitor how they're going. The final exam, in November, that gets published around about now actually. We've just received a draft timetable, so we're in June, and we've just got the timetable through for November. That's the formal working exam board, so that does come out reasonably early. And as the course review takes place after every examination and in between, actually, to make sure the students are well placed. So that's how our internal assessment is structured. Okay? We try and give them as much practice and opportunity as we can as we're going through the course. And all of our assessments from day 1 will use past paper questions to get them into the swing of it. And that may sound a bit harsh, but early on in Year 9, we'll be doing topics like percentages, for example. Now, we've been studying those. Year 6, Year 7, Year 8. You get into Year 9, we start to be a bit more applied, requiring a bit more application of our knowledge. It starts to be less kind of straightforward skills, so more problem solving. They've got the skills though, it's not something that's brand new to them, so it's a case of let's look at how the IGCSE forms it, what sort of problems do they present you with. So they get the opportunity to see how they're going to be assessed in the November of Year 10. They get the opportunity to see snapshots of that regularly through Year 9 and through Year 10. Okay, so as I've mentioned, it's the transition from Australian curriculum, because we've matched up that yes, the content in 9 and 10 is fairly similar, but how do they transition actually from 6, 7 and 8? There are 1 or 2 things that are in the IGCSE in Year 9 that they expect students to have studied in Year 8. And those things are not in the Australian curriculum until Year 9. Just a few of them. So that's okay. We've identified them, we've mapped them back, and we've made sure that they're covered in our Year 8 curriculum. So with your sons and daughters being in Year 8 at the moment, you'll see that we're assessing them according to Australian curriculum standards. But what we will do is throw the odd bit in there that helps prepare them for Year 9. So while that's not officially on the Australian curriculum for Year 8, because it's in Year 9, we've just brought it forward and made it into an edible form, if you like, for the current Year 8 to be able to manage. It's not a lot, they're not huge topics, so it's very doable for us to get through that. So that's how we make sure that the students are prepared coming through in 6, 7 and 8. So when they hit Year 9, there's a bit of revision needed, there always is, but they should be ready to take on the new topics that they're going to study. As I mentioned there's a greater application now of rather than just routine problems, routine skills, it's a greater application of knowledge, more problem solving. This can sometimes find out some students who are not great at reading questions, who are, tend to dive in, see a couple of numbers and just go, I can do that, I know how to do that. And then we have to get them to step back and to isolate the information so their comprehension skills come into play a bit more as well. So we try and, as we're going through, we try to teach them techniques about underlining keywords, trying to isolate the key information, make sure you're working through with it. So all of that is part and parcel as we're going through. We're trying not just to teach them the content, but how to actually understand what they're being asked to do. And I've already mentioned the assessments based on past paper questions from the outset to give them practice. Now, how do we place our students? This is, the gentleman there said, how do I know what my son and daughter's course is? Well, we monitor your children go through year 8 quite closely. We will be, at the end of the year, they will sit an exam. So we obviously take that into account. But we also have a whole host of data available to us. So we've got PAT, we've got, we can get NAPLAN that traces back from year 7. So although that's not in year 8, it gives us a good indication of ability. And we've got the teacher, which is very important because students don't always show their true colours, and the teachers will sometimes say, no, I know we've got more to give here, we've got more to get. So, even if a student doesn't perform brilliantly in the year 8 exam, if all of the other data is supporting that they have more ability, we won't just say, oh, well, they didn't do very well in that one exam. We don't base it just on one piece of data. So we try and take all of the bits in together to make sure the students are correctly placed. This bit is important. So we really try our best to get it right. Now, we're not always going to get it right first off, which is why we will be saying to you guys, help us out here in terms of if your child is placed, for example, on extension and is finding it stressful, is struggling, then we would be expecting the teacher would be picking this up and communicating time. However, if you're noticing it, they're not saying much, they don't like to talk about it, they're not coming to see the teacher, but then we would say to you, please let us know if there are things going on behind the scenes. Sometimes we have students who have tutors. If this applies to your son or daughter, fantastic opportunity, great to get some one-to-one help. But let us know, because if a student comes in with a nicely done piece of work, and we don't know that they may have got some extra help at home, we don't know how long it's taken them to do it, and that they needed that extra assistance because they're performing in class and they've put in a lovely piece of work. So it's useful for us to know and say, yeah, they've got it now, that's great. But they had to get, we do have a tutor, we're just letting you know. And then we go, okay, we know that they need that extra assistance, and it helps the teacher keep an eye out to make sure that they're picking stuff up in class as well. So bits of information like that are helpful if that is your position, not that it isn't for everyone.
Can I just ask you, if you know you're transitioning back to year 10,
yes, to Australia.
Up years, what is the best bet to keep your options open going back into that curriculum?
Well, I can only speak for my knowledge is based around New South Wales.
New South Wales.
Yeah, okay. So they've got levels 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3 that they study in New South Wales. So the extension would be essentially 5.3. Okay? So if your son and daughter was on extension but finding it a bit of a challenge, then they would probably transition back and do 5.2. Core would line up with the lower half of 5.2 and 5.1. So it's not a direct slide across.
No.
Now, it largely depends on the individual. I'm happy to talk to you about it in depth because it really does depend on the individual and what they want to do and etc. So, yeah, sure, happy to. Okay, so data, we use it as much as we can. However, we also want to take the student's personality, work ethic, all of those kind of things into account. So we put all this picture together at the end of year 8, and then we will recommend to you if we think your child is better off considering the core course. If we don't contact you to say, look, this is our recommendation, we've thought about it long and hard, then everyone goes on to the extension. So if we've contacted you to say it's core, then you've got the ability to come back and say, oh, I'm not totally sure about this, other reasons, or or yes, that's great, fantastic. But that's the default is extension, and we contact you to say we would recommend core. So that's how we approach it. Now, the future pathways have to be considered. The extension course, as I've already mentioned, is not for every student. It's not designed for every student. So we have to consider the pathway. So see, it sounds quite early in year 8 to be thinking, oh, blimey, year 11, you know, it's a long way away, end of year 8, early year 9, but of course we do need to consider it. So I'll run you through what the implications are here. The core course, the percentages there are indicating how many students internationally would study IB studies. So IB studies is, of the 3 levels of study in the IB, you've got higher level, standard level, which is a middle course, and then studies, which is still considered equal in value to study to the standard level, but it's a bit easier, it's a bit more approachable. Okay? About 40% of all students doing the IB will do the studies course. So it's quite a large component. On the HSC side of things, we have extension mathematics, mathematics in the middle, and then general mathematics. And about 50% of all the New South Wales students entering for HSC maths will be studying general mathematics. So if your child is doing core, then that would be their typical route when they get to year 11. Either general maths in HSC or studies for IB. And the core course is still not an easy course. It just doesn't have the large content, so it's the volume of content, and it doesn't have those very, very harder topics in it. But it still doesn't mean that it's an easy course that has no value. It definitely has value, and it prepares them very well for either of these 2 options. If your child is studying extension, then we would basically, they're able to go and do studies or general, of course. But their options then are dependent largely by how well they achieve. In brackets are our suggested matriculation guidelines. So if a student gets a B+ in extension a B or better, beg your pardon, so a B, an A or an A* in the extension course, we would recommend they do either middle or higher tier of maths. We would steer them away from IB studies and general maths, certainly in the first instance. So to study for IB higher level, we are really looking for an A or an A*. On the HSC side, to study extension mathematics, we're looking for the A or the A*. Okay? To study for the middle tier courses, now these are still what we call calculus courses, which have a lot of merit. We are looking for a B grade or higher. But of course, if you get an A or an A*, we would generally encourage you to aim as high as you can. Okay? If you get a B grade, we would be aiming you for the middle courses. So C grades in extension and core, we would be advising to try IB studies or maths. Now, there is a bit of a dilemma here, because of course we get some students who realise at the end of year 10, that didn't go as I planned, and I had a great time in year 9, and the beginning of year 10 wasn't too bad either. I was having a jolly old time, great friends in school, loved it, loved every minute of the day. Probably didn't work as much or study as much as I perhaps should have. And then they come to the exam and they realise they have a last spurt of studying, and we had it last year, a last frantic spurt in the last 2 months, study. So they kind of rescued it a bit, but they didn't get those grades that they wanted. They didn't get that B grade. There is no automatic entry then onto these courses. We would be recommending saying, well, studies or general. So a few of them were invited to interview. A few of them said, actually, I really want to study that middle course, because I've now realised in university the course I want to do requires this level of maths, and I really need to get on the course. So our approach to that is not, we don't just shut the door and say no. Our objective here is to support the students as much as we can to do the right course to get them where they want to go. These grade boundaries are there to give them an idea really of what level of understanding and what work is required. We have to be honest. You are going to struggle. One will struggle if you go for higher level IB maths or extension maths and you've got a B at IGCSE. You're going to struggle, you're going to find it a real challenge. But if the students come to you saying, yeah, but I didn't really work last year, and all our data is saying, is supporting that, and the teachers say, yeah, they were having, you know, I spoke to mum and dad didn't know what to do with them, they were sort of, you know, doing a bit of homework, weren't really studying, because we are talking about teenagers. So, you know, of course, we sit them down and we do a bit of a contract and say, okay, do you know what you're getting into? Right? They need to be very, very clear about what they're opting into here. And we tend to give them a go. All right? But it will be on a bit of a contract. We're going to be watching. We're going to be looking to make sure that those mistakes that you made in 9, maybe 10, are not replicated and going on to year 11. Because, of course, we've then got a duty of care. If a student's on a wrong course, the level of stress is not good. Okay? They're falling behind, it can affect their self-esteem. They once thought they were quite good at maths, but now because they didn't do enough work, there's, you know, all of these kind of things. Or, equally, they are doing great. They're doing great work for us. But we find that they are working pretty much all the time on maths. Now, we are quite, you know, we're mathematicians, we're like, oh, yes, that's great. Every day should be a maths day. But of course, that's not very helpful for them. It means that their other subjects are going to start to suffer. So as much as they may be doing okay in our course, you then look across the board and say, all the other subjects are really, really struggling. So it becomes more of a kind of general welfare issue. Are you going to get to where you want to go, even if you study this level of maths, but everything else is failing? So you have to then start playing a bit of a strategic game. But you, of course, will be involved in that conversation. So it's not just us and them kind of going, you know, come on, pull your socks up. It's a joint effort. So there's a lot to be considered in placing the students on the right course, in monitoring them to make sure that they're going okay on whichever course they're in. Does anyone have any questions about this aspect? I'll show you the grade boundaries now, because that can be a bit illuminating, I think. So we've got here the Australian curriculum ones. Now, obviously, that's not set by the Australian curriculum in Australia. That's the R version. That's the AIS. Okay. And we go all the way up to A plus at 95. My goodness, if you got 95, you'd probably be, you know, verging on almost best in the world in one of the subjects, I would think, at IGCSE. But 95, we get lots of students that get that in year 6, 7, and 8. It's great. Let's look along at year 9 extension to start with. The A star's not far off, it's come down to 90 now. You'll see that the C grade has come down from 60 for the Australian curriculum courses to being 50 now at IGCSE. Now again, these grade boundaries for the year 9 extension are internally set by us. We've also got the year 9 core. Now you can see that to get C on a core assessment program, you're going to need 70%. Alright? So because that's the highest grade, obviously you need to get that grade boundary. The C's are equivalent, and they're considered to be equivalent by the IGCSE board, by universities. The C is the C. Alright? Now let's look at year 10. By the time we get to year 10, we've adopted pretty much the IGCSE published grades. Now these do change each year depending on the cohort. They're not exactly, it's not exactly 84 for an A star every year. That moves around a little bit. So what we did is we took several years and we averaged them out to get a good ballpark for our students to work to. All right? So let's have a look at the C. To get a C grade, that magic matriculation grade is 39%. It goes up to 40, it can be 42, sometimes it hovers around there. Now what is that saying to us? Well, basically what it's saying is the course is a challenging one. It's very worthwhile, it's got good content, it's got a good level of mathematics, but it is a challenging one. Okay? So compare the C at Australian curriculum, which is 60%, to let's say the 40% IGCSE, it's a big difference. So when your sons or daughters come home at the end of year 9 or that year 10 exam going, oh, I only got 40%, and you're going, what do you mean you only got 40%? It's like, hang on. Not to say we can't do better, but it may not be as bad as it looks when you just look at a percentage, okay? Think about where that will project and where we can move them forward to. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And obviously it's going to be different for every student, where they're heading, what their ability level is. The Year 10 core, the comparative is 65%. So to get a C on the core, you need to know your stuff. All right? Now, there's one thing I'd like to share with you about these grades. Even though we use these through Year 9 and Year 10, what we're trying really hard to do is to move the students away from doing one assessment. Let's say the first assessment after the first 6 weeks is probably going to be on, it's going to be a revision on number, it's going to be some percentages and some arithmetic stuff, a bit of financial maths. Some of it's revision, some of it's new. And they come home and they go, woohoo, I got an A star, 84%, nailed it. This is going to be easy. So we would try and encourage them to take a step back and equally not come home going, I only got a C, I'm devastated. I only got a C on that. That means, I'm no good at maths. I always thought I was good at maths. That doesn't make sense. These grade boundaries on an individual test doesn't really make sense. Now the reason for that is that a holistic exam has got a certain proportion of E grade, D grade, C grade, and higher questions. They've got kind of proportions of all of them. If we're just analysing them on one narrow test, that test could be, so I gave one to my students recently, that had nothing on it lower than a B grade. Nothing. Because they were the topics we were studying. So some of my students are like, oh, I was really hoping to do better on this one. I only got 50%. And I'm like, you got 50% of every A, B, and A star question right. That's not bad. That is not bad. So it's all relative to the level of difficulty of the paper. So the only way we can honestly say that the grade boundaries make sense, really, is on the larger exams, not the unit tests. It doesn't really tell you much about the unit tests. The way to look at the unit test is more of a diagnostic frame of mind. So just look at it and say, okay, I got 45%. All right, I could do better than that. I would like to do better than that. Set a sensible goal. How about I just aim, the next time this comes through, I aim for 55 or 60%. I'm not aiming for 80 or 90, just a sensible goal. It can be too overwhelming if we're trying to say I'm here and I'm trying to get here. So just choose sensible bite-sized chunks, an extra 10%. That doesn't sound too bad. And then we get them to look at the tests, what they did know, fantastic, what they didn't know, and get them to prioritize from I thought I knew it, so I got one mark maybe out of the 4 available. I thought I knew it, but I just made some silly errors. Down to, well, I thought I knew it, but I didn't get a single mark, so I completely missed that boat. Down to, I couldn't even start. I read the question and I really didn't have a clue what was going on. So we try and get them to prioritize on that basis. And actually the ones where they don't have a clue, don't tackle those first. The ones to tackle first are the ones to boost your self-esteem, the ones that you thought you knew, because you're halfway there. And obviously at any stage when they're going through their tests, they come in and they get help. I thought I knew this. This is how I thought I should do it. Where did I go wrong? So there's an element in lesson of us taking apart these assessments and looking at them and saying, how could we do it better? But of course there's up to 25 students in the room and a 55-minute lesson or 2 55-minute lessons. That's never going to be enough to actually sit and work out if there is a misconception somewhere. So part of what we need the students to do, and you'll see this on the next slide, is start to adopt a more senior mindset. So how you can support your students, our students, your children. A regular study program. I'm sure as parents you would love it if your children just skipped and jumped into the room one day saying, I'm going to do a regular study program without any nagging. I am going to do 20 minutes every couple of days, no problem. But if they could do that, that would be amazing. Because what we don't want is the last minute panic revision. It doesn't work. Or if it does work, it works for very few of them. It doesn't allow them to uncover misconceptions. Where am I going wrong? It doesn't allow them any time to come and get any help because they've done it all the night before. So last, panic revision, no. We don't want it. We do send out the assessment notifications and we do give them detail on it. So we're encouraging them to use them as a little tick list. What is going to be in there? What have I covered? What have I revised in 6 weeks? That was 2 months ago. I haven't looked at it in ages. I better go back and look at it. One of the things that students will do is say, yep, that's in the bag. I really understood that. I got all of these right in class. I answered all the questions. I got up. It was fantastic. That was great. I'm very, very confident. And then they don't look at it again for 4 months. And then they walk into an assessment and go, well, I knew that. I don't understand where it's gone. But of course, it's not gone. It's just a bit rusty. And because they haven't reflected on it recently, it's not coming back to them as quickly as they need. Review assessments, diagnostic mindset. I'll say it again, it's incredibly important. Not a case of, I got it all wrong. What did I know? What bit am I going to focus on? Be very analytical, if you like. On Connect, we've actually kind of written these steps out for the students. So there's a exam revision kind of hints page, and it's taking them through step by step. This is what we wanted. This is how you're going to approach it to try and get them into this kind of routine, this strategy. Now, make early contact with their teacher. Here's one of the issues. When students are in year 6, year 7, and year 8, if they're not good at maths, they try and avoid us like the plague. Doesn't matter how nice we are to them, and how hard we try, we make it as fun lessons as possible. I don't like maths, so I'm not coming anywhere near you. So obviously that's a problem. Then we've got students who are like, no, I'm all strong at maths. It's one of my best subjects. I really, really enjoy it, and I've always been able to do it. When we come to year 9, the work is getting harder. That's the nature of it. Of course it is. As we go through to senior school, work will get harder. At some point, talent alone doesn't just get you there. You have to think about the concepts. Why is it working? Question it. Try and work it backwards. Unpick anywhere that your understanding breaks down. What we sometimes find with the very strong students is they don't like to admit that. They don't like to admit that perhaps they didn't get it the first time around, and they view coming back to see us as a weakness. But actually we are saying, no, a strong mathematics student, and I don't mean strong as in you get 90%, I mean a strong student as a learner, even if they find mathematics a challenge. A strong student as a learner will be willing to come and see us. So we have to change this mindset from the only people that go and see the teachers are ones that are really struggling and no good at the subject, because that's not true. A senior mindset is, I need to try and take this apart. I want to unpack this. I've got to try and learn how it works. And I didn't necessarily get it in the class. Some of the topics that we do are challenging. They are not necessarily going to get it all on one sweep through in a 50-minute session. We'll be sending them away and saying, have a think about it. We'll continue next lesson. So we're trying to develop the willingness to sort of say, I'd like to talk to you about this in a bit more detail. Can you just run me through this again? And that's the very strong students as well as the very weak, because now it's a more senior mindset about unpacking how you learn. So when we get to year 9, we do often find that students don't always know, haven't quite yet discovered how they best learn. So part of the experience of year 9 as well is, how does it work for me? How do I do it? How do I learn maths? How do I revise maths? Do I just sit and read? No. I have to do. But some students will just try and kind of read examples and think that they, so it's a learning journey for them as well. So if you're noticing this or you're noticing that they're getting stressful at home, please encourage them. Come in and see us. That's the thing to do. They can email the teacher, recess. We don't put on regular every Wednesday because we have an open house. So they can simply email saying, I didn't get it, are you free, lunchtime, recess? Teacher will email back saying, no, I'm on duty at recess, come at lunch, no problem. And it works. And that way they can get 5 or 10 minutes dedicated. Usually it's 5 minutes. It's usually very, very quick when they get that penny drop moment. But it's 5 minutes of uninterrupted one-to-one time that does the trick for them. So please, the best thing you can do to help us and to help them is encourage them to start doing this from an early stage. Great strengths and weaknesses we've already discussed, and set sensible improvement targets. Now, we have a program called My Maths. We do use it in 7 and 8, and it goes all the way up to senior years. So we can set stuff up here, or we can set stuff maybe if they've got gaps perhaps they realised, actually, I was unwell when we did percentages in year 7 on. I never really got it. So that's okay, you can take them back. We can devise an individual support programme for them using My Maths. We set homework on it, as a regular class thing, but we can easily, if we have identified weaknesses, usually through the diagnostic approach on assessments, we can set them extra work on it. So that's very, very easily done, and we do use that to try and fill in any gaps they may have. So it's been a whirlwind to take you through it. I'm conscious of the time because it's 6:45. So we have 15 minutes. That's totally over to you to ask questions. The only thing I would ask is if you've got something very specific that you would like information on, like particular to your child, then please feel free to ask me on a one-to-one.
I'm not aware of the background. Maybe you can explain to us the decision for the school to adopt this program versus the Australian.
That wasn't a decision made at the mathematics level, so that was a whole school strategy level. And it was made 4 years ago.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, there you go.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can answer that one.
Sure. I'll do it as a quick one because obviously we want to focus on maths. Hi, I'm Kaylee O'Hara and I'm the Deputy Head of the secondary school and have oversight for the curriculum in the secondary school. When we were looking at which curriculum we were doing the MYP at that point in time, so the students go from a PYP to MYP, and we knew we wanted to bring in the Australian curriculum. It works naturally for us for students transitioning in and out. Over 60% of our students move from Australia. And we knew that we were moving students into the HSC and we'd introduce the IB as well. So we needed to have a curriculum that we knew could meet the academic rigour of being able to go into the IB, and we also wanted something preparing students for IB and HSC, so full matriculation. So we spent a lot of time investigating which would be the best option. Now, also recognising that 40% of our students within the school are also international. So the IGCSE, which is the next session for those of you who are staying with us, is the one that we looked at. It's the most common use, or the most international. It works on a 2-year, so it gets students used to doing a 2-year course where they have the exam, which is perfect preparation for matriculation. Also the fact that it does have external examinations. So our students get to have, in year 9 and 10, that process of getting used to doing the external exam, coming into an exam hall, studying a 2-year course. So our current year 12s are our first students going through doing the IGCSE, and we look forward to seeing the benefit that will have. So I can say as a teacher who has been teaching students coming into year 11, those students who've been through the IGCSE are fantastically cared. So we'll get to see when we look at results and how that's affected, but also talking to the students. A lot of them said they hated it when they were in it, they'll be honest, when they were doing year 10, they really didn't like it, and they're so pleased that they did it, and we're hearing that feedback time and time again. So that's a quick answer. I'll let you get back to maths, but I am here if you have any questions.
Any other? Anyone? No? Wow. Okay.
Well, so we do have the 10 minutes of transition. So
Sure.
Katrin will be here, I'll be here. We also have Doug Balzer is here as well. Thank you so much for taking
You're
us
welcome.
through that.
Thank
We
you for
really
coming and
appreciate it.
For anyone who's brave. It's like being back in school, isn't it? See who sits in the back row. And a very warm welcome to our information night for Year 9 2017. If I haven't already said good evening to you, because I of course welcomed the mathematics session that started at 6 o'clock. Welcome. You're probably sitting here thinking, how did my child suddenly get into Year 9? Those years certainly do go fast. It's lovely to see some students here tonight as well. I think we're ready to get started. We may have a few who join us a little bit late. Okay, look, it's lovely to see such a wonderful turnout tonight. And for those of you that joined us an hour early for the maths session, I do hope you found that informative and you had the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. Because we're always open for questions. Our email is easy to make contact with us. So if you felt that you had something that wasn't answered, or you go away and you think of a question that perhaps wasn't covered, please don't hesitate to touch base with us, and we can certainly help you out. I'm going to be looking up a few times tonight because we're actually videotaping. I know that's a very old-fashioned phrase, and I got a little bit of a laughter from some of my younger colleagues when I use that term. But we are videotaping these sessions. We're doing it as a trial because we understand that many parents travel quite extensively, and it's very difficult to sometimes get here for evening sessions. So in addition to putting the PowerPoints up onto Connect AIS, for those who are unable to attend our sessions, you'll have the joy of watching the PowerPoint and also watching live performances. So if we make an error, you get to watch it over and over again. But for some of you that may not have had the opportunity to meet me, my name is Fiona Johnston, and I have the privilege to be the head of secondary here. It's a wonderful job, and I'm certainly still smiling about it. And I get the opportunity to work with a wonderful team of teachers, and obviously a fantastic bunch of students as they go through their journey of secondary school. So it's around about this time each year that your sons and daughters in Year 8 start to be making some very important decisions in the coming months about their future, and more importantly, the subjects that they're going to be choosing to study for their next 2 years, which is of course their Year 9 and their Year 10. And it's very important that they are supported through the process. To some of them it's very exciting because it's probably the first time that they're really starting to make a choice rather than being handed a program of course. Obviously in the past they've always been able to choose their LOTE subjects. But it's now when we get into the electives and they get to specialise a little bit, and that usually brings a great deal of excitement and optimism from the students. Some of you may have already parented a child through the IGCSEs, depending on where you've come from and your experience to date. But for most of you, it's likely to be your first time. So whatever your experience, there is a lot of information to take away this evening. And like all IGCSE courses, if you've already parented a child through, each school does it slightly differently depending on the subjects that they run. And of course, we are a Southern Hemisphere timetable running from January to December, and that brings with it a few other changes as well, which we'll talk about as the evening progresses. The purpose of tonight is for students and parents to develop a greater understanding of what the IGCSEs are, an understanding of what future pathways are open to your students following the completion of the 2-year course, and also to find out about the individual subjects that will allow your students to reach their potential. Tonight is about ensuring that each student is well informed to choose the right subjects for them, and to also ensure that their decision is based on a number of factors that will be shared with you this evening. The students have already experienced a subject fair. That was last Friday afternoon, and some parents, I believe, did pop along to that. I was in a staff briefing, so unfortunately missed it. But they've had that exposure already, and of course in their pod meetings, which are their year level meetings, they've also had the opportunity to hear Mr. Fernandez and also the heads of department about the subjects on offer. So they've had a little bit of information, but there's certainly more to come. I would like to introduce to you tonight some of the key people that will be guiding your students, your sons and daughters I should say, through the process of choosing their subjects. Remind our parents, particularly any of our new parents that have joined us recently, about where we stand as a school with our mission and vision and values, about the pathways on offers. Obviously we're going to get into the nitty-gritties of the IGCSE and also some timelines and some important dates that you will need to be aware of. So some great photos up there which the staff always love when I showcase, but they're the SLT or our senior leadership team that are very much involved in guiding students through the process and then also making it happen. We have over to my left Miss Kalia Haran, who is our Deputy Head of Teaching and Learning. We also have Miss Kim Terry, who is not here at the moment. She's probably in her office. Mr. Doug Balzer, behind us, who makes it happen from a timetable perspective. Mr. Balzer also oversees the day-to-day operations in the secondary school and your sons and daughters' camps and where they are and what they do each day. And we have 2 assistant heads of pastoral, Mr. Roger and Miss Manzi, who are also very involved in the process. People that are even close to the ground with the students in helping them is of course our 2 heads of Year 8, Mr. I've gone completely blank. Mr. Watson, lovely maths teacher, and also Ms. Chelsea Ewan, who's our humanities teacher. And then the very key man who has really stepped up tonight by even putting on a vest is Mr. Martin Fernandez, who is our IGC coordinator. He will certainly be dominating tonight's information session. There's two other pictures there that are important. One is of Miss Sarah Harris, who oversees our VET program. Now, VET stands for Vocation Educational Training. And if you've been following our updates in the newsletter, you'll know that we were very excited to this year launch vocational pathways. We are a non-selective school, and it's important that all students have the opportunity to achieve academic success and enjoy their courses of study. And two of the subjects that we've introduced with huge success has been our hospitality and our construction. And those subjects filter all the way down to our Year 9 and 10 program, where the students are able to gain a Certificate 1 in construction and also a Certificate 1 in hospitality. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later on tonight. And then the last very handsome man there is Mr. Tim Hudson, who oversees our EAL program, and I'll explain why he is important, or will be important to some of you, depending on your child and your child's pathway. So while tonight is very much about subject choices, and we'll definitely have a very academic focus, it is important that I acknowledge that AIS is about educating the whole child. A balanced program of academic studies, CCA activities, community service and downtime is a key success to successfully getting through Year 9 and Year 10. Your sons and daughters will be provided with a nurturing community throughout their journey, and we are fully committed to the notion of holistic, well-rounded education that cherishes the arts and sports as well as academics essential to each student's education. It is our aim for all of our AIS students to realise their potential through the exceptional opportunities on offer to them as an AIS student, and to leave AIS as caring, reflective, knowledgeable and principled students that are drawn to making a difference in the world for good. We hope that our values, achievement, respect and opportunity will guide them in their decision making and choices as they develop into young adults in the years ahead. I really like this slide, as it does give an idea about pathways, and you'll see there that we've got the HSC, the IBDP and then an alternative pathway. Now, why is this relevant to you when your sons and daughters are in Year 10? Tonight, when you're sitting and hearing about the choices available on offer in IGCSE, it is important to have a slightly broader and wider hat on, because your children, if they continue at AIS, or wherever they continue their matriculation years, that's their final senior years of Year 11 and 12, it is important to be thinking that next step ahead. And you'll hear a little bit more about that. For example, your child may be thinking, I really think that I would like to study economics when I do the higher school certificate. So I won't do it at IGCSE because I'm going to pick it up in Year 11. And the truth is they can do that. But is it an advantage to have 2 years of economics behind them if they do want to do it later on? Absolutely it is. Okay? So it is important to know that as your kids go through the IGCSE, they will be making some choices. This is a really good slide, and I understand that the font is very small, so I will just talk through it, and it will be on the presentation that we upload onto Connect for you. Your students at the moment, your sons and daughters, are sitting either here in our Australian curriculum for Year 8. There may be a few that are on modified curriculum, and that would be individual for that particular student. And maybe some of you here tonight that have your sons and daughters in our EAL program, or what we call our PMC, which is our partial mainstream. The majority of our students will go down that traditional path into our IGCSEs, into either our HSC and IBDP, this way here, and then onto further study. However, we do have some students that will choose vocational subjects like hospitality and construction, and they'll want to take those on to Year 11 and 12. Can they take those on and still go to university? Absolutely, yes they can, and we can talk to you further about that if you're thinking your child might like to go down that pathway and graduate perhaps with a Certificate 2 in hospitality, as well as getting an ATAR to go on to university. We'll have some students that will go on to our ESSPP, which is our EAL secondary or senior school preparation program. Any child that is recommended for this course there will be a further consultation one-on-one with the parents and the students involved, and that's a protected EAL course where you have half of your subjects mainstream and half of them EAL intensive, and sometimes, or actually most of the time, they come out of that ESSVP back into here, and you can see all the little dotted lines. So there's many pathways on offer to accommodate for the diversity of the students that we have here. And no pathway is right, no pathway is wrong. It's about getting what's right for your son and your daughter. So what I would like to do now is to hand over to our IGCSE coordinator, Martin Fernandez, to give you a little bit of a journey into what the IGCSE is and what it's going to look like for your sons and daughters for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm actually an English teacher too, so I will try and be brief. We'll start with a quiz, right? You tell me. James Bond, A View to a Kill. James Bond, A View to a Kill. What year is it? Oh, you're rubbish, aren't you? 84, you're close. Everton win the European Cup. Liverpool win the league. Windows introduce Windows 1.0. What year was that? You were very close. It's not 84.
80.
8 hours. Try again. 80. I'll have to give it to you. 85. Now the only reason I mention that is not because it's about Everton or Liverpool. It's because that's when I sat GCSE myself. So I've been through this 2-year programme. The IGCSE is an offshoot from it. I've been through it myself. So I know exactly what it's about. I lived it as a student rather than just as a teacher. I've been teaching it for approximately 15 years in countries such as Taiwan, China, and now here in Singapore. So I'm a very experienced IGCSE teacher. I find it an enjoyable, informative course, an excellent way to ensure the students are also reflective, informative, and most importantly, independent learners, which they will definitely be in year 11 and 12. So much so that the year 11 and 12 students that I teach now that went through the IGCSE, I can see the effect it's had on them. It's a very positive effect. They are independent learners, they do not need me always to direct them, they're very self-managed. And I think that's a very good byproduct of the IGCSE. I can work this right. So realistically, that is the blurb. 87 countries, 14 to 16. I did it when I was 14 to 16, a long time ago. Really good links to IB and HSC as well. And yeah, I really enjoy teaching it too. Now I've been a bit ambitious here by trying to put a movie on, but I am actually an English teacher. So if the movie doesn't work, we can just move on and the presentation is shorter. So that's great. Stand the bottom there. Oh, good. So this is just an indication of where the IGCSE is taking the world. So I think it's really important to understand it's the international benchmark. It is all over the world. Yes, I'm from the UK, but realistically, everyone I've taught in Asia has been doing the IGCSE. And it's very prevalent in Europe as well, as you can see. So here's how we tackle the IGCSE AIS. I think the most important point to make is that it's a holistic programme for all our students. All of our subjects and the way they are configured link well to our key values of respect, opportunity and achievement. we strongly recommend that you have a balanced timetable. With out of classroom opportunities, as you'll see there with the NYAA programme, sport, PE, etc. So yes, tonight is about academics, but we also have to ensure that within the IGCSE you also have a balanced timetable. And I think because it is the international benchmark, you will be having a balanced timetable. Alright. Sorry, so yeah, another movie. This one's a short one. Now you need to know who Cambridge are our suppliers for the curriculum, so take a look at these guys. Back one bit. Yeah. So who are Cambridge?
Cambridge International Examinations is the world's largest provider of international education programs and qualifications for 5 to 19-year-olds, from primary through to secondary and up to university.
One of the great things about the Cambridge programme is that it enables progression. So one can actually see that the preparations at the primary and secondary stage prepare people very well then to go on to study a subject in depth at the advanced stage.
It's just taught me to learn independently and to research independently and to think on my own and based on my own initiative.
We offer world-class international education through high-quality curriculum, assessments and support for teachers.
What I find attractive in what I might call the Cambridge approach is that, first of all, there is content, but there is a primary emphasis on the analysis of the content, and maybe most importantly, being expressive about the content, being able to communicate it.
Our programs and qualifications help Cambridge learners be confident, responsible, reflective, innovative, and engaged.
I think you learn much more, and the things you do, you can apply them more to real life.
We help Cambridge teachers to be confident, responsible, reflective, innovative, and engaged.
The different approach forces you to see things from different points of view. That's a more international dimension, which is a very enriching experience for me.
We're a not-for-profit organisation and a part of the University of Cambridge. We share the same educational values and the university's commitment to excellence in education. Our qualifications are internationally recognised by the world's universities and employers, providing learners with a global passport to success.
Universities around the world understand the value of a Cambridge qualification. It is essential that our students see their own experience as a continuum. It doesn't stop when they graduate from school. What they've learned should be relevant to them in what is to come.
Cambridge assessments are rigorous and reliable, leading to international qualifications that are valued worldwide. Every year, thousands of learners gain the Cambridge qualifications they need to enter the world's top universities.
We've really realised that what we're doing is pitting our own students against the international best, and that really has a big impact on the school's curriculum.
We offer world-class support for teachers, including teacher guides, examiner reports and online resources. We bring Cambridge schools, learners and teachers closer together through events, training, online forums and social networks.
One of the great benefits of being part of the Cambridge family is that there are, around the globe, some outstanding practitioners and some absolutely outstanding world-class schools.
It makes you realise that you're not in isolation. You're working with really a really large international community who will have the same problems, the same successes, but different solutions and different ideas.
To find out how we can work together, contact our customer services team.
Okay, so that's all nice and well and done, but I think the key words that I take from that are independent learners, and you will learn more. Yes, you will learn more during the IGCSE, probably more than you've done in previous years. So I think it's really key to to say that the IGCSE will be perfect preparation for 30 years, absolutely. But how's it looking in the classroom? Well, for me, basically discussion and group work is a key feature of IGCSE. If you happen to come to my world literature English classroom, you will see that the students do a lot of talking. And it's actually good talking, it's not just talking. There's lots of feedback, there's lots of me facilitating, there's lots of them driving the discussion forward. That is a key feature of the IGCSE. It's not an idea of chalk and talk. Yes, there is content, but we are very much enthusiastic to acknowledge that the students have voice in the classroom as well. So you will definitely see lots of discussion, group work activities, a variety of activities, critical thinking. This all takes place in the classroom. And one of the points at the bottom there is the subject content is wide-ranging and detailed. You will, I'm talking to students now, you will cover quite a variety of aspects in your subjects. So much so that some of it even goes into the HSC. So it's a nice little bridge into the curriculum. And of course, note-taking is really something that does need to take place for students when you're in these classrooms, be it on the laptops, be it self-organised. I think the key point for me for the IGCSE, it's not about exams or about content as such, it's about skills. Every single one of you Year 8 kids in this room today will be so ready for Year 11 because you've got the exam skills, you've got the in-class skills. It really does refine you and make you ready for further study. Alright. So, as I say, excellent preparation, it really is. The class content is highly relevant. I teach world literature and English. It's probably the first time my students have come across writers from South Africa, from India, from Pakistan, the whole lot. It is really globally focused. You will know Global Perspectives, probably one of our favourite courses in the school. Case studies, studies from Singapore, studies from around the world. It is an international curriculum. Students will be challenged to think globally and of their surroundings, and very, as I said before, engaging group work discussions. The final bullet point is something that I'll repeat, but it's something that impresses me most about the IGCSE is the study skills that are so refined during this programme. If you're going into the DP and the HSC, you will be ready, without doubt. You will be ready. All right. So I have another video, but do you want to watch that or do you want to? No. Are you videoed out? It's maths, so it's not my subject. I couldn't find an English one, so. Okay, let's watch it then. It's only 3 minutes. Cheers, miss.
Are you challenging? Or
English is more interesting anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. So some of you being for the maths thing tonight, this is the same course.
University of Cambridge International Examinations, CIE, is the world's largest provider of international qualifications for 14 to 19-year-olds. CIE developed the international GCSE over 20 years ago, and it is now the most popular international qualification for 14 to 16-year-olds. Cambridge IGCSE International Mathematics is a new qualification for schools offering an international curriculum.
I like this cultural aspect which I want and which I also need for my IB to carry on later in life.
I think you learn much more, and the things you do, you can apply them more to real life.
It was challenging, but also not too hard, and it really helped me this year, especially with math standard level and IB, to prepare and have a broad foundation for the course.
CIE developed the curriculum in conjunction with teachers in international schools. Before first teaching began, Cambridge and IB schools worldwide piloted the course and gave feedback on the syllabus.
The mathematics involved in it are much more current and much more in line with current needs for student learning.
Sometimes we're using technology, sometimes we're looking for patterns, sometimes we're trying to model the behavior of some variables. There's definitely a variety of what happens in the classroom. And I think the kids get a lot out of that.
I'm managing to get through the course far quicker, and the students are getting far more from it.
I definitely enjoy teaching the new curriculum much more.
On the course, students practice thinking skills and learn subject knowledge through solving open-ended problems. Students learn investigation and modeling skills.
It's not only numbers, but it's also logic and you have to think deeply. The modeling and investigation was a bit different and a bit outside the box, and I guess that helped with now reports, and especially in sciences this year.
I think the students get very excited about what they're doing. There's a lot more hands-on stuff with the investigations and the modelling and the other activities. They learn how to remember that.
One of the special features of Cambridge IGCSE International Maths is learning the use of the graphical calculator, a key tool used by students studying for the IB diploma.
The graphical calculator is a great device. I found out you can do almost anything on it. You can draw graphs, model, do this, it can do almost anything for you. And all of that I learned in maths from my IGCSE course.
It helped us finding, for example, mean, mode, median on the calculator, and not always doing it per hand. For example, in science, we had to do a lab, and I just grabbed my calculator, did it, and I got it.
Cambridge IGCSE is an internationally recognised qualification. It can be integrated within an IB middle years programme in maths or offers a standalone curriculum. It prepares students for further study on the IB diploma, Cambridge International A and AS level, and beyond.
Prepares you for the IB and especially the math, the calculator part. It helps you in other subjects as well, like economics. In the IB program, you need it, and if you get practice earlier, it's better for you.
It helps benefits the transition from IGCSE to IB.
Schools offering Cambridge International Maths have access to a number of CIE resources, including endorsed textbooks, a discussion forum, and website offering teacher support. For more information on Cambridge IGCSE, visit our website or telephone our customer services team.
What do you remember? You're in school, so you get a Q&A. What about the learning styles? What did they say about learning styles? Okay, what about skills?
I can use a calculator.
You can use a calculator, thank God you can use a calculator. I couldn't, oh thank God, yeah. I'm after things like independent learning skills and, thinking for yourself. For me, that's a big deal. It really is. Because that is, for me, that's the signal of a strong student that can work by themselves. So it's really important for me. And it's global as well, as they said. There's no more videos, it's okay. Assessment, okay. Just to give you an indication, when I did the GCSE maths, I got a grade C, which was fantastic for me because I'm terrible at maths, absolutely terrible. So when you see all these grades, you have to think about the students that you have, your sons and daughters, strengths and weaknesses. For me, my grade C, mathematics was like an A star, to be honest. French, German, English, no problem whatsoever. Maths, many problems. I had to go and see my teacher all the time. Lunchtime, my brother helped me because he was the maths geek in the house. I had no idea. And I got there in the end. So this is the grading. A star, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, U. The internal assessments that we have here are graded exactly the same. And in fact, they are basically based on what you'll be doing externally as well. So it's very authentic, the grades that you'll be getting in year 9 and 10, as to what you'll be expecting at the end of 2 years. We keep it very consistent. Traditionally, A star, A, B, C are seen as the highest grades. So I was happy with C for all maths. This is what we got last year. I won't talk about it because you can all see it, but sorry, you can't see it now. There you go. 56% A star, B. I think they are good results. We are an inclusive school. We do have a range of ability, so they are impressive results, I would say. And it's what our third cohort. We're still quite young with the IG. Okay, you probably know of these guys because, well, we're very proud of them, and rightly so. These two guys are now in my DP literature class, and you've got Maddie and Amelia. Both did superbly, best in the world for IGCSE PE and music. And I don't want to understate that, that is amazing, best in the world. You came above everyone else. Pretty astounding. Both of these kids are in my DP Lit class now. And of course, you know, they're clever, they're motivated. But the thing I see most from these two kids is they're confident, they speak freely, they challenge me, they will ask me, what about this, what do you think about this? And I think that's the byproduct of the IGCSE. They are very mature students now. They feel confident in justifying their own opinions. So it's definitely influenced them greatly. And they actually blew me in my IB class. Literature is quite a tough subject, and they are flying, absolutely flying. Okay, the kids' favourite, examinations. So yeah, 2-year programme, exams at the end. We have suppliers, Edexcel and Cambridge. Vast majority, 99% of Cambridge. We have some Edexcel, it's design technology, it's what else, art, but the vast majority are Cambridge. It's examinations, some have half-half, 60-40 coursework, and the majority of our students will study for the extended papers. I'll explain what the difference is now. Extended. Some students may have to transfer to core. So the IGCSE does cater for a range of abilities. So everyone is looked after. Core and extended. Okay, some subjects have core and extended papers. Extended, obviously, as the title says, have more detail, are extended. They literally are longer papers. 1 hour 45 core, maybe 2 hours for the extended paper. They are of a longer length, as you see. The key point to remember is extended are graded from A star to E. The highest grade is A star. Core run from C to G. So perhaps in 1985 when I did it, it would have been better for me to do core. But we didn't have it then, everyone did it all together. So I got my C in the end. And the highest grade at core is a C. So to accommodate for this shift, if you like, we have set in year 9, it's year 9, term 4. There'll be a process of identifying core and extended to make sure that we can really look after all the students together. Maths do it as well. You would have heard about this tonight, so I won't really spend too much time on that. Student movements is English is considered if there are significant changes in the student's progress. The norm is for students to remain in the allocated class following the review of class sets in year 8 and 9. So, term 4, sorry. For English, we'll be looking at as we go along. We have a core paper for language. We do not have a core paper for literature. Everyone does a literature. So we will keep an eye on it as we go along. And I think this is also very handy as it ensures that we cater for the range of ability. Alright, exams. Yeah, can't avoid it. They are there. But the key point to remember is that I think the exam skills that you learn as a student will put you 2 years ahead when you get to the HSC and the DP, without doubt. Absolutely. That's by the bottom bullet point there. They take place in May and November. Again, vast majority in November. 2-year course. Yeah, take a look at that top bullet point. Revision skills, study techniques, examination techniques. As I said with those 2 girls before, when they came into my IB class, their study skills are absolutely superb. The note-taking, the revision, the independent learning, they go away and do far more study than I actually tell them to do. And that's because they've been influenced by the IGCSE, they are independent thinkers now. So I think that's a wonderful, wonderful byproduct. And if you want to steal some past papers, well, there they are. It's a public website, it goes back to about 3 years. There's also things like schemes of work which are planned. You'll see classroom resources that teachers sometimes use. Teachers obviously have another website that has more in there. And to be frank, if you just Googled past papers, CIE, Cambridge, you'll get thousands. It's that big of a curriculum. So realistically for me, what I'd just like to finish with is that I have 2 kids in the school. My kids are 10 and what's my other kid? 6, sorry. I forget, she's a dominant one. They're not in the high school yet, but if they were, I would be very, very happy for them to do the IGCSE. Because it will challenge them, it will feed them, and they will come out at the other end of it independent learners. And that's the most important thing for me. I'm done. Cheers. No more videos. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to quickly cover 2 more subjects that we do have on offer for our students. So current year 8s who here might want to listen to some other choices that they'll have. First of all, I'd just like to say one thing. I came to Singapore after 12 years in the UK, and I was very lucky to teach at the most oversubscribed school in the country, so all of England. And I think that Mr. Fernandez may be being a bit modest when he talks about our results, because I can say that 56% of your cohort to get A star to B grades is outstanding, and it's very impressive. And 12% of all those results to be A star to A is excellent. And I can also say that to have 2 students get the top of the world, my school that I was at in the UK, we would have had all the national newspapers visiting us and interviewing. So I think the Australian International School in Singapore has a lot to celebrate to be getting those results and to also be the top of the world. It's not often you can actually say, we are the best in the world. And our students are. We'll take all the credit for those girls getting those results. And also, the year before, was it the year before that, we also had top of the world with global perspectives, which is absolutely excellent. So, what I would like to follow on when we look at the IGCSEs is when the students are selecting their subjects, they have 7 subjects that they can choose from that they'll be doing. And we also have, out of those 7 you're choosing, 2 of them they might want to consider this option. Now, this is a vocational pathway. Now, we have 2 subjects on offer that students can do if they might enjoy a bit more practical based, a bit more skill based. And what we were looking at is we wanted to offer something different for the students as well. And we looked at what the trends were in Australia, and we knew that there were more vocational options being taken, and we wanted to look at what we could do. So we worked very closely with AIS New South Wales, just to confuse us a little bit. That's the Australian Independent School of New South Wales. And we have a partnership with them, we're a member with them, and we talked about what options we could do, because we wanted to do some vet subjects. Now, to do a vet subject, you get a certificate. So Certificate 1 or Certificate 2 that you can get in secondary school. Now, that is nationally recognised, and it's actually also internationally recognised. For those of you who might be from Europe, it's equivalent to a BTEC as well, so that's what you do if you're in the UK. So we wanted something that could actually get a certificate, so equivalent of a qualification for our students. Now, with BOSTA, so with the Board of Studies that you work with in New South Wales, they don't allow you to do this freely, you have to go through a rigorous process, which we did. So we had inspectors come over here, they looked at our facilities, we invested quite heavily in being able to do this, to be able to offer hospitality and construction. So we're very excited that we can do this, and our students will get an accreditation for it. So, for you, those of you in Year 8 who are going to do 9 and 10, you can choose to do construction or hospitality and you'll get a certificate for it, Cert 1, which will be recognised. If you wanted to go on further to 11 and 12, you could get a certificate 2, which is equivalent of moving into TAFE, for those of you familiar with that in Australia. So these subjects will give industry skills, they're recognised, they're practical skills, problem solving, industry based, and we know that the industry are crying out for more students to move forward and have these skills. So students will get recognition, industry courses, and we're looking at, sorry, that picture should be there. You don't have to do a mandatory workplace. We will have workplace and practicals that the students would do. So they'll learn to be baristas, they'll be able to make coffee, we've got waitressing, they've got gorgeous uniforms they'll be doing, construction, we'll be doing bricklaying and learning all those qualifications. We will do it all on site. So it will all be done here at the school. And we've been checked, we are certified, so they're happy for us to be able to do it, and our staff are all fully trained to be able to deliver this. And it will move on naturally into the Cert 2. So when you're doing your subject selections, students, if you're interested in something to do more practical based, it could balance quite well for you. So have a look at your options and see if it fits in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Also, students, Mrs. Harris is the one who's in charge of that program, so you can always go down to technology and speak to her as well. Okay, so how to do the subject selections.
Okay. It's been a long night, so I won't keep it too much longer. The subject selection is a critical part of your students' progress. So we obviously have had the subject expo already, so the students have been introduced basically to the subjects. They have a general understanding of what is available. Additionally, you have your course guide, which you should be able to pick up here. Next term, we have the subject selection will open, and it's going to be using the similar feature of your Connect, where we'll send you out an email with a hyperlink. The students will then go on to Connect and be able to select their subjects. I'll go through and I'll show you an example of that. I did have a picture up on the next slide, but it was an old version, so we quickly got rid of it. And I'll show you it actually live in a minute. That portal stays open for 1 week. After that week, it closes, and then we look at what subject selections have come in, and that then generates what blocks we are able to offer to the students. If there's any issues with clashes, so there's certain subjects that have been blocked against other subjects because of the numbers of students who have chosen one subject, and another subject dictates where they sit on the blocks. If there's 3 kids that have chosen one subject and those they also want to do another subject, if it clashes, we'll have to go back and discuss it with them and say, listen, is there a third choice? Part of the subject selection, we actually ask for a alternative selection from them. I'll try not to use selection but we do actually get an extra choice from them, and that allows us a little bit of flexibility in assigning the best possible subject selection coursework for them. The final subject choices will be published hopefully around the end of the term. That's our goal. It is a little bit flexible because we also have to fit into that the Year 11 blocking selection, which will happen as well. I'll raise my voice at this point and I'll go through a live selection. So the page that will be sent out to you will be this page here. It's a fairly simple task. It will be sent out to the parents. First name, last name of the student, you should know that. There are some preconditions that we do need to be aware of, and these are published in the guidebook there. Economics and business studies cannot be chosen together, as well as art and design photography. So obviously those two subjects are too similar and should not be done together. First choice is your language elective, where you choose one of your languages that you'd like, and it's just a simple drop-down box like that. You have your elective 2 and elective 1, elective 2 and elective 3, and then finally an alternative elective. Then you submit the form, and that is the subject selections that are done. Now once the subject selections are done, if you do wish to go in and edit them, you can, if the window hasn't closed, still make those choices. And that's simply by going up to the top of the page, and I don't actually have one here. You'll actually have a little number 1 up there, which signifies that is the first choice that you've put in. Please, I ask that you only use that first choice. We had a small issue last year where people were doing multiple choices. They'd come home, they'd have a discussion, they'd put their first choice in, then a day later they went, actually I want to change that, and then redid the whole form again. So we had multiple choices for this student, and we of course have to pull them in saying, what was your last one? That little box at the top will allow you to go into the original form and make those changes while the window is open. After the window is shut, you'll need to go and see Mr. Fernandez and have a discussion with him if you do wish to change any of your choices. Let me go back to the main slide. These are the preconditions that I spoke about earlier. They're also clearly identified in the IGCSE course. And that's the subject choice button that will be at the top. So at the top of your screen, once you've entered the subject choices for the first time, this number 1 will appear, so you can go back and re-enter those ones. Any questions at this point?
Yeah, well, so the selection is done by the students or by the parents?
I will send it out to the parents. Hopefully you'll have some consultation with the children, but that's why I asked for your first, the name of your child. So your parents will be the one that will be logged in.
They'll be logging in the selection.
Yeah, and I suppose another small point is that because it'll be sent to both parents, the one that logs in will be the one that will have the course registered. So if you do want to go back and make any changes, use that same login that you made your first choices with. Otherwise, I'll have, yet again, 2 choices from 2 different parents.
When did the students make the choice to take a core rather than an extended exam?
Okay, for mathematics, it's generally done by their grades, and it says on the information which is on the page, which you haven't seen yet, that it's done in conjunction with their maths grades that they've received, as well as English. It's only until they reach year 10, then they start differentiating into core and advanced. So year 9, they all do the same course.
Is there a cooling off period like there is with the IB? That if once they start it, that they find that this is completely not the right subject for them, there's not a
Yeah, absolutely. We don't encourage it because if they're going to swap to something else, they've missed the first few weeks of something else. But realistically, it is something that does happen. The students might get into a course, and despite the amount of research they've done and asked questions and spoken to the relevant staff, they might get in and go, actually, this is not for me. So of course we're open to have a look. Yeah.
The only consideration there is that they'll have to choose their next subject from the blocks that are already created.
Yeah.
So the subject choices actually dictate what blocks actually run. So we actually design the whole structure of the year 9 timetable around the subjects that the students choose.
I would say out of the cohort of about 150, there may be between 5 and 10 students that might choose to change in the first few weeks. Yeah. In addition to that, there may be a few that get tapped on the shoulder at the end of the first term where we might make a recommendation to say, you know, is this the subject that you really want to be doing? We've noticed you're struggling, you're not achieving very well, are you enjoying it? Do we want to recognise or consider something else? But that's certainly in consultation with the parents. Yeah, they'd always be involved in that. Okay, well look, we're all here, at least for the next 20 minutes or so, so if you've got any individual questions, please don't hesitate to come up and ask. Thank you for coming along, and I wish you a very safe journey home. Thank you.